So here with me is Ulf Carlsson, who is Director of Innovation and Predevelopment at Xylem, leading water technology company that you probably met in the exhibition area before. We have Jakob Henricson, who is responsible for data, IT strategy, and security at Skanska, Sweden. Also present here, and they're also partners in Digital Futures. Hedvig Kjellström, professor at KTH in the division of Robotics, Perception, and Learning. We have David Lassiter, who is Senior Data Scientist, Analytics and Insights at Sweden Operations of AstraZeneca, that you also find in the exhibit, and as partner of Digital Futures. And Merdad Sadatman, Senior Researcher at RISE. So I'm very happy to approach this topic together with you. There is a lot of hype around AI, and the question is, what happens in the field? We're going to get quite concrete in this panel. We will search for gold. So how AI may be used to improve business performance, productivity, efficiency. AI is a broad area. Generative AI is a broad area. And there are many applications. And we will look at some use cases here today. So it was interesting to hear Elena Färsman earlier today. She mentioned that predictions are great, and prediction of unwanted states. She said optimizing limited resources. These may be some golden opportunities. Marit Wagen talked about Swedish social security numbers as a gold mine. So I'm going to turn to my beautiful panel and ask you where you see that the gold is, where the biggest opportunities for businesses and individuals. Where is the gold? And please, Hedvig, start.
Yes, I can start. So I think we heard in the last talk now a really great presentation about generative AI and large language models. And I think that's what's on top of people's heads when they hear AI. But I would also like to bring forward like more maybe boring aspects of AI. So anomaly detection and predictive maintenance, which are recurring problems. And we will, of course, hear more about examples. And then I also want to say that I think the real gold is in the data. So I saw someone wrote qualitative data, and I think that's what makes the huge difference. So there are really good learning models right now. And the biggest difference will not be developing an even more, even greater model for your anomaly detection problem. What you really need is really good data that you have processed.
Well, Hedvig, I have a little bit hard to follow you when you say anomaly detection and predictive is sort of boring. We think within Xylem we think this is super interesting. So we have a little bit of dynamics going.
So don't get me wrong. I think all parts of AI are super interesting. So
Let me just to fill in a little bit. I mean, if we think about, gold. If we look when we work on AI and develop new solutions, data is of course super valuable, and then that we've seen that as part of digital transformation. That is foundation has really been built up, giving access to data that we can really work on and apply these technologies. That's a big change.
I totally agree about the application of, I wouldn't say boring methods, but maybe classical methods. I've noticed today, or I don't think I've heard today, a definition of AI, which is interesting considering this conference all about AI. And I'm not going to give you one because I also don't hazard a guess at how to define it so that everyone's in agreement. But I think that's interesting because it's kind of like magic in a sense. It's what's just on the cusp of people getting how to grasp it and how to use it. That's AI, and everything else that we already have an understanding of and are already using, that's no longer AI. That's old techniques. That's data science. That's machine learning. But when it comes to the gold, I think that a lot of the gold yet to be harvested is with these more classical methods. Optimization, as you mentioned. You mentioned anomaly detection. We are working on predictive maintenance. But then there is this new gold rush, which is like the generative models, generative AI, large language models. And I think with that new gold rush, a lot of that is about putting these tools in the hands of more people and allowing more people to kind of see the value. In a previous discussion we had, I mentioned I think there's some academic research on this, but I hope you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's academic research showing that giving, for example, junior developers access to code assistance, that this actually helps them accelerate their productivity so that they become much closer to senior programmers faster. And so I think that this is a gold rush. This is an opportunity to extract the gold using generative AI.
Yeah, I think before this panel reaches the answer, what is the AI gold? I can also add that while we are having this quest for the gold in AI, there are companies that are selling the shovels, right? NVIDIA. So maybe we also should think about the other side of the story, like if we have the right tools to find the gold. So that is another perspective that perhaps we can discuss also through these discussions.
Absolutely. And Skanska, where do you see gold?
Well, I think it's going to be a boring panel because we all agree with each other here. But I would say coming from a sector where structured information is not readily available in building projects, etc. I used to be at Henricson before, and the telecom sector are a few years ahead in that aspect. And I think the LLM technology can, in some aspects, bridge that a little bit. It's not going to be where the gold is, but like Excel sheets, it can help us where the systems don't fulfill all the requirements that we need to produce the data or the numbers or the ideas, etc. So there's something to be said for LLMs in there, just to give another perspective.
But maybe then AI is just a case and a cabinet, and it's what we put in it that is really important. That's where we find the gold, with the data, and also a lot of other various aspects of this. We're gonna dive into concrete examples, so you can explain more about your gold, where you find it, where you see it. AI may be seen as science fiction, but in fact, we're already using it. We have used it for a long time, and in industry, there are plenty of applications. And I know you have interesting stories to tell.
Yeah. So at AstraZeneca, I think the previous speaker touched on this quite a bit. AstraZeneca starting with research and development, there's tons of applications of AI there. And we've heard about those today, and we'll continue hearing about those because they're not going away. We have not tapped that vein of gold yet. Where we're sitting in Södertälje in operations and it's manufacturing. So there, a couple of current use cases I can talk about is, again, applying order techniques, using computer vision to help us find defects and sort them out so that they don't go further in the line. Schedule optimization. We have anomaly detection. So we're using multiple of these cases already today, but then we're trying to bring in LLMs into operations. We're trying to essentially provide decision support for operators, maintenance technicians. So we have this idea, and I believe you have a case you talked about before, where you're trying something like this, and maybe it's not going well, so I think we might learn from you, where we're trying to put LLMs on top of like a corpus of documents, and so maintenance logs, and how people intervene to repair equipment when there's been stoppages. And then essentially trying to do this in a way so that the maintenance operators, they get quicker to resolution, so that they come to the line, they're able to see what a certain set of symptoms, a certain set of equipment, refer to a chatbot in this case that's been informed by previous records, and that chatbot can give them a recommendation how to intervene. And this also, I think, can help touch on something that came up in the panel as far as why companies aren't able to extract the value yet, and it comes to the data, is that I predict that this will be somewhat of what's this called, a self-fulfilling prophecy or a positive loop, where the maintenance operators, that they use this tool, they get the benefit from the tool, and they're now more incentivized to actually log the right information into the data systems, so the tool becomes better over time. Because oftentimes the data is missing because people don't see the value. So this is a couple of use cases we're currently exploring.
Jakob, right here. I think you have a similar
No, I think,
experience?
I mean, in terms of like boring AI, if we speak like that, we mostly use it in support processes like HR and finance and for RPAs, for example, or anomaly detection and security and things like that. But what we've been exploring quite a lot the last year is LLMs and how do we make them useful. And typically, I think like LLMs is like a democratization of technology, right? In the past, whenever you wanted to do something with AI, you had to go to the IT department and ask them for a project. And they set up a project, you had a steering group, and 6 months later something came out and maybe it was successful or maybe it wasn't. But now you can just sit down and actually try your own use cases with the LLMs, right? Problem is that most people want to go with the route they've always taken. So they want to order an LLM to do something in particular from the IT department instead of exploring themselves. And what they typically order is put an LLM as a chatbot on a set of data. And I hear this from everybody. I think this is the simple conclusion. What can we use AI for? Oh, it talks. So help me explain what's in our intraweb or something like that. So, and we ran a test like that, set up a RAG, custom instructions, structure the data, etc. And we get 70-80% right answers, something like that. Sometimes we get 100% wrong answers, but with strong confidence, right? So what you're talking about, like using it for coders to help them along the way, I think it's great because they already know a little bit what they're doing. But if you don't know the area and it's important, then LLMs are slightly dangerous. And we can see in Elena's presentation from Henricson, they actually did the homework and graded how successful is a generic LLM. Well, it was around 60% or something like that. If you add a RAG to it and you tailor it a bit, maybe it's 70-80%. Is that good enough? For most use cases, it's not, unless you know that the people are using it as a sparring partner, not as a source of truth.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think you should regard an LLM as another human, a buddy or a collaborator that you can discuss things with.
Yeah.
So we think, I mean, I'm a university professor, so I think a lot about how LLMs will and are affecting teaching, how students learn. And the best ways students use LLMs are like discussion partners. Like ask, and the LLM might pose questions to them. And but so very often everyone focuses on the risks. But I think and there are huge risks that our way of examining is getting worthless because you just ask an LLM to answer. But I think that we can make use of LLMs to have a more efficient learning process by using. And also teach people, so people have to learn how to use these tools. So in exactly that way that you described.
I think that phrase you... Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to ask Rise and Meredith, do you have similar experience?
Yeah, I agree that the value is in the data, the quality of the data. So they say that data is the new oil. So that I don't think we disagree about that one. But one challenge that we observe in our collaborations with different industrial sectors is that they say they can log and have access to huge amount of data from the operation of their systems, from their development processes and so on. But the question for them is that they come to us, they ask us, show us which data is relevant for us, and so that they can emphasize their efforts on collection of those valuable data, because they can log everything. So we have actually one person, former PhD student here in the crowd, that worked with ABB Robotics on this topic at RISE. Now she's at Scania. And so from these robot arms that ABB Robotics is producing, they generate a huge amount of behavioral data. But we didn't know which data sets or input data are relevant for evaluating performance. So this is a challenge that we see in multiple industrial sectors that, for example, maybe Xylem also has this thing that, okay, they have access to different sensors and they can collect information, data from those sensors. But if we look at the level higher, what semantical information we can extract, what correlation between those data points we can understand when we collect and look at this data set. So I think this is a challenge and also maybe an area where we can generate more value from application of different AI techniques. Yeah.
And I know we have a use case
Yes.
of sensors at Xylem.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, on the data, we have, I mean, Xylem, we work with water and wastewater. So clean water to consumers, wastewater out from us to treatment plants. And we have one application where we have installed cameras and also, I mean, the relevant sensors for pump operations and collecting high-frequency data so that we can do all the diagnostics we need. And with this, we basically have I mean, AI interpreting live video streams, and we can detect if something is going to go wrong with a pump station without it actually happens, which is a great, if it would be a great inconvenience for us all. And the example I have is that we have in 2 municipalities north of Stockholm, Vallentuna and Knivsta, we have deployed this together with customers, and we have now, based on that AI interpretation of the videos, we generate the heat map, get the full diagnostics, and they have reduced their pump station inspections, the resource need for that with more than 50%. So it's really an amazing journey. And it feels like the beginning of something big for sure. So, and then we have other projects. Can I keep going? Yes, thanks. So we have a project here with the university and the Stockholm Vatten on predictive maintenance. I mean, anomaly detection and trying to minimize the need for I mean, the cost for operating a pump station network. We're going to do that right here in Stockholm. So and I think that is really, really interesting, and it's going to be us working together. I'm thinking about what we talked about earlier with cooperation and the need to work together to move the needle here on deploying solutions that will be really give us value. And I'm sure that we can do a lot of reach a lot of amazing results. I mean, applying this technology to pump station networks here in the Stockholm area.
I think it's a beautiful collaboration between City of Stockholm
Yes.
and Xylem as the industrial partner, and
Yes.
academia. KTH is in there
Yes.
under the umbrella of Digital Futures, by the
Yes.
way.
Yes.
And I believe AstraZeneca.
Yeah, we're working in a similar way. We have an ongoing collaboration with KTH. We're actually getting the help from 3 excellent postdoctoral researchers to help us with predictive maintenance specifically. So this is a little bit off topic, but it touches on some of the earlier sessions, that I think that it's nice to be in Stockholm and Sweden, where we're trying to use these new technologies actually to uplift like society, and like Digital Futures is doing this essentially. We're bringing together academia, industry, society, whereas some of the other places that have been mentioned earlier today maybe might not have that culturally ingrained. And so I think that it's a really wonderful opportunity here, as long as we exploit it to the fullest effect, that it's not about gold for a few, it's really about trying to get the gold out for society's improvement. So I'm proud of this collaboration. We're still early days in the collaboration. It's also predictive maintenance. We're trying to use sensor data from our equipment in order to intervene with the lines to reduce the line downtime, essentially. And it's not just about increasing productivity, but at the end of the day, we're generating medicine for patients. So we're always trying to couch these in these terms as well. It's not just about trying to increase the bottom line. It's really about we have patients at the other end that are depending on this. So as long as we try to remember that that's the value, then it's easy to motivate why we're doing the work.
Yeah.
And it's exciting with the present, but perhaps even more exciting with the future. And with you all experts in your fields, it would be interesting to know how you envisage the future. Looking ahead, what does the next phase of the AI gold rush look like? Are we on the verge of new breakthroughs that could redefine where the gold is? Any thoughts on that?
I can start. I feel like I've talked a lot, but I think these multimodal models are really exciting. I like to see some of the AI with creativity coming up in the earlier sessions. I think that's so. If keeping it to the gold rush and like the business sense of it, I think multimodal models can really help those with like sensory impairments. So if you can find ways to take a sound environment where someone has impaired hearing, but then you can translate that into a sense that they can perceive. I think that's really profound and powerful. And again, democratizing and bringing up society. So I think that's, we're on the frontier of that. And I think that's very exciting. And then coming back to creativity, to kind of piggyback on earlier sessions, this is old by now, but Google had like a music LM. And this was quite interesting. I heard a podcast where they described Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night just in words, and then it made a song, and it was poignantly accurate. Like the feelings it evoked were like, yeah, I see Van Gogh's Starry Night by hearing this song. So I think that's really profound in the creative space and maybe threatening to creators, but for me as a consumer, it's exciting. So.
And Merdad, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the exciting future for AI lies at the intersection of different disciplines. So maybe reflecting on the recent Nobel Prize in physics, which was given to a computer scientist. So I think that's where the value is, and when we come together from different disciplines and utilize these solutions from the computer science world to chemistry to medical domain and so on. So I think that's where we can make not only the gold, but maybe diamonds. So I think that's an area that we need to collaborate more closely on, and maybe bring people also from different domains under the same roof so that they can interact with each other.
And do you think we're on the way there? Is that
I think things are
likely
happening.
future
Yeah, I mean,
scenario?
maybe this Nobel Prize is an acknowledgement of these endeavors that people come together and discuss the cross-disciplinary aspects of AI, and that's really exciting. And I'm also very hopeful for the medical domain. I mean, diagnosis, detecting some heart issues or medical conditions before they become critical. So I think those will generate impact for all of us. So that is something that we deal in our families, in our daily life. So that's the value.
So will we live forever in the future?
yeah, of course.
Yes, and have we more future visions?
Yes, future visions. I would say that, one example, in Xylem we also work with startups and companies, mostly in the US, and we have one cooperation with a company that do AI inspection of piping networks, and we have a big challenge overall. With the not so good infrastructure when it comes to piping. There's a lot of leaks, a lot of loss in this area, and what they do is that we basically are filming a lot in pipe networks and then having AI diagnosing what they see and highlighting where attention should be put to address potential issues. So that's a cool use case. And what else? I would say that we talked about music and music generation. We work with water. We cannot really be without water, so that's something that we absolutely need to focus on. And if we look at what we're facing with climate change, with all the weather issues, the infrastructure, applying AI and this technology to resolve these challenges is really going to solve water for us all. So that's I think that water is really gold. So that's
the water is the gold of the future.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
That reminds me of just this idea that certain commodities like water, they're not valuable until you can't have them, and then they're the most valuable thing. You'll pay all the gold in the world for water. So really, really good work you're doing.
It's addictive.
And Jacob, I think you believe in algorithms.
Algorithms. I think we'll be able to do more with less data and less structured data, dirty data in the future than we are able to now. I both think and hope, because it's a difficult field. So I think that is something we'll see around the horizon. But I think when it comes to LLMs, for example, we don't know what the future holds because we're treating it as an old technology, but it is something new. And I think that our kids will, be the first ones to. We can't unlearn the way that we look at new technology, but they are using it intuitively. So, best use case I saw was for my 12-year-old son who had a test, and then he instructed ChatGPT to construct the test, ask him the questions, grade his answers, and correct them. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's very creative.
With the voice assistants.
Do we have a comment from academia on that, Hedvig?
Yeah. No, I think that's the best way of using an LLM. Yeah. Fantastic. Other than that, I think there were great things being said. I just want to add, follow up on climate. So I think maybe, we heard the talk just about AI for science. I think maybe AI methods are part of the solution, maybe, to our grand challenges. But it's also, I'm a bit worried about we're using like the power consumption of Skellefteå during a year to train an LLM or something. So, just to take a thing off my head.
They need their power.
Yes. So we could use it for that instead. But so I think it's important to. So we heard in the previous talk that LLMs are becoming more and more efficient, so they can do things better. So we should also use that development to make them more power efficient, I think.
Yeah, maybe regarding that, I can add that at RISE we are also looking into small language models, not only large language models, which can be domain specific and then are a bit better in that sense. So that is an area that is worth looking into.
Yeah. I'll get back to the Henricson presentation earlier as well, is that's from learning by doing. They experience actually that having more domain-specific, smaller scope was actually more effective. So exactly. We don't have to start with the big guns. We can start with the smaller guns. They might be more effective.
And I think the basic sort of way, the basic way, the success factor is the size. So maybe we have to go via big size, but then make them efficient afterwards.
Especially for such use cases that you have at Xylem, maybe we will see the application of language model closer to the edge. So then they need to be really efficient in terms of the power consumption, resource usage, and so on. So I think that is also a direction that probably researchers can look into a bit.
And I'm not thinking about, one of the questions that came up, or one of the statements that came up, are we working on the right problem? And that is really where we can secure that we're working on the right problem with these common cooperations and with the society, that we identify the right problems, and then also that making the technology accessible for the users and relevant, because that's what I've seen. Senior maintenance technicians getting excited about, wow, can I do this? Can I see this? These results. So this feels like Star Wars, which is actually a true quote, but that I heard is just super cool. So that's the adaptability and we can all take this technology on. So that's for sure going to be gold in that.
Excellent. So, trying to summarize, data is the gold, water is the gold of the future. We will do more with less data and dirty data. Large language models are getting better, and we should make them more power efficient, and we should make sure that we're working on the right problems. Thank you very, very much for insights and cases.
Thank you.